Beyond the Ribbon podcast, where we are creating an empowering and supportive community for women navigating the journey of breast cancer. My name is Lynley Harris.
And I'm Amy Smith,
your fellow survivors and thrivers. Whether you are currently facing a diagnosis, undergoing treatment, or adjusting to life after cancer, this podcast is for you.
Our mission is to provide raw, unfiltered insights and practical information to help you through every step of your cancer journey. We want you to know that you are not alone. We will journey together and we will heal together.
So on today's episode, we're going to talk about everything chemo. All the good, bad, and the ugly, because it was definitely not pretty.
Right.
So you and I had the same treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I was just 6 weeks ahead of you, and so when you started your first treatment, I started my third.
You were at the halfway point.
Yeah,
right.
I was at the halfway point.
Yeah.
And so the treatment that we actually had was what they called PTCH, and that is Taxotere, Carboplatin, Herceptin, and Perjeta. So we had those four medications every 3 weeks, and those treatments are long. They are most of the time around 6 hours. That's the actual infusion time. Now there's pre-meds and then there's post-meds depending on how you're doing.
And then the time it takes to paperwork, access your port, get back there, get it accessed. Then did we usually meet with our oncologist before?
Yeah.
Then go down?
Yeah.
And once your butt was in the chemo chair, that's when they started in the pharmacy to make your chemo cocktail.
Yeah.
Chemo
The
drugs.
cocktail. Oh yeah, they call it the cocktail.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both ended up with the same medications, which was really interesting because it's not like we had any idea that this was going to be so similar.
And
but
nobody thinks of it. I know I didn't. I'm like, chemo's just not a drug. Like,
exactly.
Everybody generalizes, so thank God not everyone's been through that.
Yeah.
So to learn that it was all different, and I remember like the very first one that when they administer it, some of them they have to completely gown up.
Yep.
I don't remember which drug that was for.
Yeah.
And then also they would sit with you and they wouldn't tell you that they were watching you to make sure you didn't have a reaction of some sort.
Yeah.
But allergic reactions are huge.
Yeah.
And they push a lot of Benadryl in the beginning, right?
My gosh. So I remember my first treatment. We went in and the nurse, she was such a blessing. I absolutely love this woman. I'm not going to reference her just to keep her privacy, but man, she was such a blessing.
Yeah.
So she comes in and she's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you this drug and then this drug and then this is what's going to happen. And so she tells us, I'm going to give you Benadryl. It's going to make you sleepy, but that's okay. She was like, take a little nap. It's fine. Well, I remember my husband just looking at me across the room. She's pushing Benadryl through my port.
Yeah.
And Jason said it was like watching like a building fall. He was just like, you just were like there and then you weren't.
Seriously, a building, Jason?
Yeah, he was just like,
a little
what?
bit sweeter.
It was so, yeah, he was just like, you just were like there and then you were gone.
Yeah. No, it's much stronger than I realized. And I felt like a lot of times, I would always have my mom or my husband with me before you and I joined rooms.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I had a visitor with me, I'm like, I gotta stay awake so I can entertain, you know? And that was hard because it made you super groggy. Yeah. You know? I don't think I ever slept through it
So that first one, I slept for the first 2 hours. I had no idea that I was like, that was gonna happen. I'm like, wait, what do you mean I'm gonna sleep? I woke up and I was like, where am I? Like, this is like a dream. Like, this is so weird.
Gosh, right.
But yeah, Jason was like, yeah, like, you just slept through it, and the nurses kept coming in and out, like, changing the bag and doing their thing, like, it would beep, and then, and it honestly, that day, I think, even though it seemed like it lasted so long, it almost seemed like the treatment wasn't nearly as treacherous as I thought it was going to be because I slept through some of it.
Which is good because I know my first one was extremely long. Like, I felt like we like shut down the chemo floor.
Oh yeah.
And we're headed home. and all of the list of things that they give to you, like, hey, you probably want to get this on your way home.
Mm-hmm.
Find you a person that will go get that stuff while you're there, because that's the last thing you want to do
Yeah.
after that long of a day.
Yeah.
But what was it? I think it was like anti-diarrheal,
Yeah.
a
Anti-nausea.
thermometer, anti-nausea.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think like what else there was. I still have my list. I should have brought that. But
So they give you all kinds of medications before you ever even start.
Yeah.
So like the day before you're starting stuff, and then
oh yeah, your steroids.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
and there's a whole
steroids have you
regimen for that.
all out of whack.
Yeah.
So something I haven't shared on here, but I personally have type 1 diabetes, and the medications they give you can really mess that up. So I took, which I think you took the same one. It was the steroid that we started the day before.
Does it start with a D?
I can't remember.
I can't either.
Well, we'll reference it in the video comments so that you guys will know what we're talking about. But one thing I want to bring up is that if you happen to have diabetes and you are about to go through cancer treatment, make sure that the drugs that you're taking aren't going to affect your blood sugar. I did not know how severe it was going to affect me until the morning of my treatment. So I remember I had to take like half a pill the night before, and then the morning of, an hour before I was to get to the breast center, I had to take one full pill.
Yeah.
So I remember I checked my blood sugar like on the way. I ate like a very small breakfast, as much as I could stomach, because I was super nervous, of course. I checked my blood sugar, and I remember it was like in the 90s. It was like 97 maybe. And so this is an hour before I get there, get my labs drawn, do all the things. I get there. I didn't really wait very long. They took me right back to get my labs. They access your port, draw your blood, test everything. Then you go see the doctor. Well, I'm in there waiting for the physician, and here they come. The nurses are like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What is happening?" I'm like, "I'm fine." And they were like, "No, like, are you sure you're okay? You don't have any weird symptoms or anything?" And I was like, "No." And so they come back and they tell me my blood sugar is like in the 500s. I was like, "What is happening?" I'm like, "Wait, are you sure?" Because normally I would have like symptoms. I would feel it. I would know what's happening.
Right. What's a normal range?
Normal range is like 70 to like 120.
Oh wow.
So for a typical person, it can even range a little differently depending on who you are and what your situation is.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, okay, perfect. My blood sugar is in good range. So before I go in here, I don't have to stress about that. And then instantly, I get in there and they're like, like, are you okay? Like, whatever. So through that, the pharmacist comes in. They're asking me questions about what medications I take. They must not have realized that I was diabetic. So they come in. They're like, okay, we need to adjust your insulin rate and everything, because I wear a pump, and that's what controls it. Well, the medication I took, they were like, you can't take this, and if you do, we need to have adjustments for when you do take it. So then they're calling my endocrinologist, and they're trying to figure out what that's supposed to be. And here I am, about to receive chemo for the first time, and I am stressed to the max because I feel out of control. I already feel out of control. And that stress for me was like, it just made it feel like this was just not gonna go my way. Everything was gonna.
This is gonna set the tone for the chemo, because this is all you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
so
awful.
It was just so stressful right off the gate. Well, thankfully we got it figured out. I didn't take that medication like I was supposed to that night. I ended up getting sent another medication, which I will reference in the video as well. It's technically an antipsychotic medication that does treat nausea. I did not know that that's what it was. All I knew was that here's the prescription, this is what we want you to take, this is when we want you to take it, and this is how many times we want you to take it. Well, that did help with not affecting my blood sugar, but I'll go into a little bit more here in a bit about what it actually did. So the point of my story here is just make sure that, like, if you are going to start something, make sure you know everything about it. Do your research, even though you're stressed. Even if you have your family member, like you could have had your mom do that. I could have had my husband, whoever.
Yeah, have your person that's an advocate for you when you're feeling like
Yeah.
you necessarily can't. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely advocate for yourself. I was very upset at that moment when I was sitting in there waiting for the physician to come in and talk to me before I was about to have my first treatment. And I made it very clear that, like, this was not going to affect me being a parent. Like, we're circling back to what we talked about in our last episode. Parenting through this was, like, my #1 priority.
Right.
And that was going to make it a lot harder, as if that's what, that, you know, was going to happen to me. I can't be out of control with my diabetes and try to go through this cancer treatment.
Right.
So it was a big thing, and it was something I definitely wanted to highlight here, because I know that there's somebody out there that's going through the same thing, who is in the same boat as me, and might need a little bit of, you know, helpful guidance. And what did I do? I wish I would have had that.
Right.
So I would like to relay that message through this episode. It's just like, please do your research. As much as it is a pain in the butt when you're going through all of this,
Right.
like, find out what this is going to do to your body before your body tells you.
Yeah.
So I wish I could tell my younger self that.
And honestly, I mean, we were naive when we started because we'd never been through this. But you had fully disclosed. We went through detailed paperwork. So it's almost kind of feeling let down, because it's like, I thought you guys would have caught that or known, because I gave it all to you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, that's difficult. But I'm glad that you were able to work through it.
Yeah.
And now you can share the importance of, you know, looking through, because I didn't question a lot of stuff. I mean, I didn't have diabetes, but there were a lot of things I'm like, yeah, I take that. Didn't know really what it was for. Sometimes, you know.
Exactly.
You just go through the motions, you know, this is just what I'm supposed to do, you know.
Of course. And I think when you get in touch with the right people, when you know that you are with the people who are going to save your life, you do whatever it is that they say that you need to do, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And that was where I was. I was like, whatever you say, that's what I'm going to do. If I need to take it at 8 p.m., I'm going to set my alarm and take it at 8 p.m. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because I trust them, and I know that the mission that they are after is the same mission that I am after as well. So.
And side note, I hope that every person that starts chemo or diagnosed, whatever person they're going to for treatment, whatever stage they're at, I hope that they can find the peace and the confidence that we did, where we got to go.
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
And if that takes like reaching out to other people to, you know, in your community to like get names of people, or, you know, making the drive to a breast center, you know, that specializes.
Yeah, I think people are scared sometimes to step outside of what they know.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's like, well, but my hospital that's like right down the road, they'll take care of me.
And you think about, like, you've got co-pays, you've got gas money, like, all this stuff. And so I know for me, I was like, the gas to go up there once every 3 weeks or whatever. Or, you know, when I did radiation and, you know, the daily trips.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the bigger picture.
Of course.
And know, you know, you've got to feel confident where you're going for your ultimate healing. So.
Yeah, and, you know, through this, I think that people need to understand that, like, getting a second opinion, I really want people to understand that you taking your health into your hands is not going to hurt anybody else's feelings.
No.
Meaning, you go see one doctor and they give you an opinion, and then you go see another doctor and they give you a different opinion, and you decide, I kind of agree with the second doctor. Now you go back to the first doctor and you're really nervous that they're gonna, like, their feelings are gonna be hurt. This is not your hairdresser. This is not that. Like, this is, it is okay for you to do that. And whatever is meant for you is what's meant for you. That doctor is not going to be upset with you for going to get a second opinion from somebody who might be more specialized in the care that you need. So I actually, because I worked for the cancer hospital, there are several patients who come for their, like, yearly checkups or their, you know, biannual checkups or whatever it is, and they actually have the chemo treatment or the radiation treatment at their local hospital. So it's like, just, I want people to know that that's a possibility. You don't have to make that drive every single day to that hospital that's further away, but maybe that hospital that's further away is going to have a better opinion for you and what your
I actually tried to do that, to get chemo at my local hospital. From my oncologist. They're like, we can't do that. I mean, networks and different things. So it worked out how it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But like you said, at the end of the day, you have to put yourself first. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do no matter what stage you're in, whether
Yeah.
you're like big in your career, if you're a parent, if you're a wife. We're not used to putting ourselves first, or it can feel selfish sometimes.
Yeah.
But in this aspect, you have to, and it starts with not people pleasing.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thankful that you did
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
that's one of the ways we connected so much. It's like
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
decided to take a chance and like go to this other hospital.
Yeah.
And because of that, we were able to match up on the days that we had treatment, which was such a blessing.
Because we had different oncologists, but we did have the same chemo days. So then we would start trying to get our times the same.
Oh yeah. The scheduling.
Yeah. So it worked out because you knew some people from work, so we could be able to get that matched up, which was good.
Yeah, it was nice.
Did you ever have any problems with them accessing your port?
No, not necessarily. I do remember there was a time, so they give you lidocaine to put on it. Did you have lidocaine?
Yes. And that is my biggest thing that I tell anybody about.
Yes.
But specifically, 2 kids I know with their chemo, and one was like 4, and the other one was in 4th or 5th grade. And I messaged parents right away, and I said, I don't know if they're gonna like prescribe this to you or not, but lidocaine cream on top of the port 30 minutes before with your press and seal is what they always told us, to help numb it. And I was like, we go through enough. The less I have to feel is the most important.
Yeah.
So I would always, and still to this day, or if I had a tube, I know it's technically prescription, but it might have ended up at their house for them to use, because I'm like, you should not have to feel anything, especially a child. And if they're not prescribing that, I can't really understand why, because I just feel like that's wrong.
Yeah. So one of the little tidbits that I tell people, so if you're about to go through treatment and you do have a port, I tell people to take the gloves from, if you happen to go into the, to get your labs drawn, they have the boxes of gloves. Take 10 of those. Just do it. Like, it's okay if you do. Take those, stockpile those in your bag. Exactly. So take those, stockpile those in your bag, and what I would do is I would put the glove on, put the lidocaine on my finger, I would rub it around on the space, and then I would take the glove off and then just set it underneath my shirt over top.
Oh, there you go.
And then it would just kind of hang there. At that time, I was still wearing I think some sort of bra. So it would just tuck right underneath there. It wouldn't really move. And that way it wasn't just getting everywhere, all of your clothes and all that.
Oh yeah.
But it was something so simple. It's like, okay, I just use the glove because I don't want to get it on my fingers. I want to just leave it. You don't have to worry about getting a napkin or wipe your hands. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I would just flip the glove. I would take it off, flip it over, and then just stick it.
I think I would normally do it when we got in the car too, and that would be every time. So the timing should be right,
Yeah. But back to your question, you asked if I ever had any issues with it. The only time that I remember having an issue was when I forgot to put the lidocaine on. Oh. And I think I had only had it on for maybe 10 minutes, but it wasn't fully numbed yet.
Yeah.
So I do remember when they access it, because it's like this little circular thing with a needle in it, and they're actually pressing it into your port. And it definitely, it's not that I felt it on the surface of the skin, it's that I felt it deeper, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And it was definitely uncomfortable. I do remember being so mad at myself. I'm like, why didn't I just put that on sooner? I completely forgot. So don't forget to do it. It's definitely worth doing.
My first chemo, I didn't have my port yet. So,
oh, that's right. You had an IV.
Yeah, and so that was, honestly, ports are the way to go. It's very simple. Are we going to do an episode on that, you think? Or
we can talk about it.
Okay.
The port.
They just make a little line, right here, and then they make a little pocket and set it down in, and then you'll have do you have a little scar on your neck?
Yeah, I have a little one right here, on my collarbone somewhere.
Okay, I have a little one on my neck, and they just kind of guide that wire or tube to where they need it to go. But it's twilight, right? So were you conversating with your doctor or nurses?
The person who placed it?
Yeah.
So, funny story, my sister-in-law worked in interventional radiology. Yeah. So, not that I ever wanted to be considered a VIP patient, which I I don't agree with the VIP patient thing. That's my personal preference. Just from working in cancer.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone is a VIP patient and should be treated that way.
Yeah.
But she asked if one of the physicians in IR, because she wasn't working in that area anymore, but she had his number, and she texted him and was like, hey, my sister-in-law is going to be getting a port. And she was like, you know, she asked me who I would recommend since I worked in the department, and she was like, you know, would you mind adding her onto your schedule if you have any space? Not like saying, I really need you to do this for me. Like, she was very nice about it.
Yeah.
And he was such a blessing. He added me in, like, I think it was like 3 days later. It was so nice. I was able to get that before I started treatment. And she actually took me to the appointment, like to the thing. I had no idea what I was signing up for when I said yes.
What is IR when you refer to it?
So interventional radiology.
Okay.
So they're the ones who do the actual procedure.
Okay.
Because I'm very type A, I don't love being, like, I don't love when they give you the medication before you go back into surgery. I want to know what's happening, and I'm okay with knowing what's happening, because I'm not somebody who's getting like super anxious because they're starting to talk about what's going to happen. I'm good with that. I actually feel less stressed because I know what's going on.
Okay.
So I remember this physician came in and he's telling me everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, signing the paperwork, everything's good, whatever. And I said to him, because he goes, you know, here are the pre-medications, we're going to give you this, it's going to make you a little tired, whatever, but you're going to be awake. And I remember looking at him and I said, can I not take that? And he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm good if I'm fully awake for this. Like, I know what's about to happen at this point. You've explained everything. I personally don't want to take that. I said, because it's going to make me really anxious if I do. And I think it's like Valium and that kind of thing. Well, I went back into the OR and he was like, okay, he was like, well, if you do start to feel a little uncomfortable, we are going to give you something. And I said, that's fine. I will let you know if I'm not comfortable with what's happening. And we went back in there. I remember, so because it was on this side of my chest, you're on a table, they've got all the lights and everything, and then there was a nurse sitting to my right, and she was doing something with the IV the whole time, basically.
Yeah.
So I was just like leaned this way, looking at her, and we were just talking. She was like asking about the kids, what
did they have like the kind of thing up right here?
So yeah, they did. So I couldn't see anything.
Right, which is good.
Yeah, I think it was like here. So
they gave you like a numbing shot?
So they did the numbing. They did do the numbing.
Okay.
So I couldn't feel anything.
Wow.
I remember talking to the nurse for most of it, and then I remember the doctor talking to me, and he was like, wow, you got kids? What? How old are they? Like, that kind of thing, no big deal.
Oh yeah, the small talk. Some of us love, some of us hate.
I know. So we're talking, and then I do remember there was 2 different periods of the procedure where he was like, okay, we're going to stop talking for a minute. And I said, okay. And I just laid there, and he was like, I could hear him telling them, okay, we're going to push down here, you're going to stitch that, blah, 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 whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was just really quiet. And then he'd be like, okay, you feeling okay? You doing all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing fine. Like, I'm good. And I remember him saying afterwards, he's like, I've never had a patient ask me to not take the pre-meds. Like, that's like not something that people do. And I'm like,
this day and age.
and honestly, I just was very thankful that he was willing to do that, because I just really, really did not want to feel that way.
Right.
For me, that's what worked best. Now, obviously, I know not everybody is going to go into it with that same mindset.
But it's good that he like heard you.
Yeah.
And like respected your wishes.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm pretty sure my sister-in-law, because she was in there when we were going over everything. I'm pretty sure I remember him looking at her going, are you sure? Is she sure about this? And she was like, yeah, she's good. Like, she'll be fine. But yeah, like, I feel like you have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, then, you know, it may not be as smooth sailing as it could have been.
But I felt like it was such an easy procedure. I felt groggy after, and I got car sick on the way home, but I think they let me, like, he brought me chips, and I think I ate them too soon after, you know.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a good experience. I am, like, forever grateful to have had my port. I actually, like, when they removed it during my reconstruction, I have it in a bag at home. And I know that's so weird. They thought when I said keep it, that I wanted to keep it in my body. And I was like, no, like I want to take it home with me.
Oh my God.
And they're like, what? But like my dad's friend was going through chemo, and they were talking about a port for him because his veins weren't good anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, let me like stop by one day. I'll show you. I'm like, this is what I had, and this, you know. And I just feel like knowledge is power.
It is.
And I have to know plans and just to know to feel like I'm kind of in control.
Yeah.
And that helped me cope a lot. My first chemo, I didn't have the port, and like it was so hard to keep my arm straight and not move it for that long the whole time, and then it kept beeping, and it was like just kind of like moving around, and
I didn't even think about keeping your arm straight.
Yeah, it was hard because every time like it would kind of like get off, the machine would beep, and then they'd have to come in. And, like, it was just a headache for everybody.
Wow.
But yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
So for your port placement, you did the medications. Do you remember the procedure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just remember I was just super chill. I was just laying there. I think if anything, and it could be, I don't know if I think I've grown more this way after cancer. I am a much more anxious person than I've probably ever been. But I think, you know, maybe it has to do with that. Maybe it's just I'm figuring out myself.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be able just to like relax as much as possible. So I felt like I laid there for a long time, but there were two girls in there, and they were just kind of having a conversation, and then they were kind of joking with the doctor, and it was just easy peasy.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing in total was like 45 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
I think by the time we got in there and got it like going, because I know like we rolled in there. I mean, I felt like, okay, I can walk in here, but I'm gonna roll in here. But we like went in there, and it seemed like really part of the time that I was in there, they were just getting everything set up.
Right.
And so, you know, once it got started, it was fairly quick. I don't feel like it lasted very long at all.
Very standard, like, process, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And I think kind of like getting into like chemo, I was surprised. So I was like, oh, okay, we're here for a long time. So, of how the bathroom etiquette is after you start chemo. Like you need to shut the lid, you need to flush twice. You don't think about like things being airborne or anything like that after. So that was a surprise to me. Otherwise,
they have patient bathrooms in the chemo suite. If you are a guest, you have to go out of the chemo suite to use the restroom because they do not want you exposed to that. You know, because I mean, it is technically coming out that way.
Right. And it's just wild that like we can just put that in us and to get better. You know,
right? Exactly.
It like surprises me.
Yeah.
How are your side effects?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's dive into that. So we'll just talk about the first treatment for both of us.
Okay.
So for me, my first treatment, like I said back to the beginning with the medications, they switched everything right away. I had to start the antipsychotic medication, which I did not know, like I said, was that. People take this medication for schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's how serious that medication is.
Okay.
And because they don't know the side effects that you're going to have, they gave me the full dose. So I had the full dose of that pill. And so I had the treatment the day after. I was fine. Yeah. I did not take anything until the night of so I had treatment on Thursday. I did not take anything until Friday night. That's when I was supposed to take this medication. So I took it. I was supposed to. I had no idea.
Right.
My husband was going to go to work on Saturday morning. He had a couple things to do. I have 2 young children, right? My daughter, thank God, was still in a crib. My son, who is 3, was not, but that's okay because he's a little bit more self-sufficient. He was also potty trained, thank the Lord. That would have been really bad.
For sure.
Saturday morning rolls around, and I remember I was sleeping on my right side, and I was right on the edge of the bed, and my husband, like I said, was not there. I wake up to my 3-year-old looking at me. He's like this close to me. I mean, like so close. I can still remember, like I can still visualize all of this. He was so close to me, and he was like, "Mommy, it's time to get up." And I was just like, "Okay, like let's get up." Well, it was fine when I was laying on my side. I sat up in the bed and it felt like the entire world was spinning. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I just remember sitting there. I was like, I had my hands on the sides of the bed and I kind of started to panic for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I could hear my daughter, because my son walked right out of the room and walked straight into my daughter's room, and she's standing up on her crib, on the side of her crib, and they're talking and laughing and whatever. So they're all happy. Everybody's happy. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to get out of this bed and I don't want to like fall on the ground.
Right.
So thankfully, my bed and the wall were super close together on my side of the bed where I was sleeping. So I stood up with my hand on the wall and my hand on the bed. And I remember thinking like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can do this. It's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. I can do this. Kate was still in her crib. Parker's still running around doing his thing. He actually went to the bathroom in the midst of this. I told him, I was like, go potty, like, do your thing, you know.
Right.
I went to the bathroom. And I remember I was sitting there and I was like, okay, what am I going to, like, okay. Like, I'm starting to get a little anxious because I have these two children. Like, these two little babies are here and I have to take care of them.
And you're realizing you're not 100% right.
Exactly.
You don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, after that, I did take Parker out into the kitchen. And I remember I got him just Cheerios. I was like, okay, we're gonna get a bowl of Cheerios. Mm-hmm. I had the little milk, like the little Horizons milk, the little carton ones. Mm-hmm. So I gave him one of those. I was like, perfect, he'll be happy with this. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Then I decided, because Kate was yelling at this point, so I went back and got her. And then I somehow managed, because she was not walking at this point in time. Mm-hmm. She didn't walk till she was 15 months old. And like I said, she was only a year old when I found out I had cancer. Mm-hmm. So I think she was like a year and a couple weeks at this point. Mm-hmm. I carried her out, put her in the high chair. That was like, okay, I can get her in the high chair and then she won't be able to get out. Like, it'll be great. So I did that. And then I gave her Cheerios. I did the exact same thing. I put like a little bit of milk in one of her little sippy cups. It was perfect. Then I went and sat on the couch. And I remember thinking, who am I going to call right now? Because Jason is not close by. Mm-hmm. So I think at first I called him because I was like, okay, just to double check, where are you? Mm-hmm. And then he said, okay, just call my parents. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just call your parents. They're close by. They only live like 6-7 minutes away. It's not a big deal. I remember I called Jason's dad. I hit the call button and I think it rang once, maybe once. I don't even think it rang a whole ring. And he was like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, this is at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm fine. And he was like, no, you're not. What's wrong? Like, what's going on? And I was like, I took this medication last night and I feel like it's making me feel a little crazy. Mm-hmm. And he was like, okay, we'll be right over. And he was like, where are the kids? Like, drilling me. And I was like, they're just, yeah, it was like Kate's in her high chair and Parker's just sitting at the kitchen table they're eating breakfast. And he was like, okay, we'll be right there. And he hung up the phone. And not even 10 minutes they were there. Mm-hmm. It was so fast. Both of them came. I was like, I can't take care of them. I was like, I feel like I'm gonna fall over. Mm-hmm. And so they packed up some stuff for the kids. They took them for the day, and then as soon as they left, I went straight back into the bedroom and I went back to bed. This is at 8:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I didn't wake up until 1:30 in the afternoon. Wow. And when I woke up, I was still feeling like the whole world was spinning. Mm-hmm. It was such a weird thing, and I remember after I woke up, I was so angry because I said, this is the thing that's not gonna, this cancer treatment is not gonna take away from my kids. Mm-hmm. So, and from me being a mom. Right. So I called the overnight nurse, and she told me, she was like, oh, they gave you the full dose of the whatever medication. And I said, really? I'm like, why am I taking the full dose? Right. So then I was instructed to take it, because you only take it once. You take it at night. Mm-hmm. They told me to cut the pill in half and take half. And I almost didn't take it at all. So I took half on Saturday night. You're supposed to take it like 3 days. So it was like Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, and then you don't take anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, I took the pill on Saturday night, and it definitely made a difference. I was more like awake and alert and all of that. I didn't feel so crazy. Mm-hmm. I just didn't feel like myself though. Right. And then I took it on Sunday night, like they said, but I had a meal on Sunday night. I had very little of it, but it did not agree with me. So by Monday morning, I was like vomiting, sick, diarrhea, like all the things.
Yeah.
Like it was awful. And then I ended up having to go in on Tuesday to have fluids. So that was definitely my worst treatment. And I know that it's like a trial and error. I'm sure it was the same way with you, like trying to figure out what works for you and your body. But that was rough. I mean, just feeling like I couldn't take care of my own children. And I felt like on the day before, because you know, I had treatment on Thursday. On Friday, I felt great. I was like, okay, I don't really feel bad. Well, little did I know that the day after it's kind of the honeymoon phase, and then it kind of hits you, is what they say.
Right.
So what happened with you for your first one? Did you have any issues like that?
My first one, I was super tired because I just felt like it was a super long day. And then we were like having work done at our house at the time. A friend had helped us out and came in to like send a crew to like help finish space of our house as we were in the process of adding on.
Yeah, that's right.
To make more livable space if we needed any more help, like, you know, have extra room and whatnot. So we had people there, I think it was the day after, and they were putting carpet, and I just remember how heightened I was to the smells of cigarette smoke on these people that were coming into work, and heartburn. I really struggled with that.
I think I had heartburn.
And then I never napped ever, but I napped during chemo because I just felt so depleted sometimes. And then eventually, like, it was the start of like really bad diarrhea.
Yeah.
And it never really like ended up letting up or anything. So that caused problems. But beyond that, I feel like those three things were kind of like the worst of it for the most. And I felt like I got on this schedule, and I really think it was like 1 week after that it like hit me. And I was like, I know for these 2 days, I'm not going to be at my best or feeling well at all. And it was hard because that was like usually around like Friday, Saturday. But I was like, I just really can't, you know?
Yeah.
Did you get is it the Neulasta on your arm?
Yep.
Or wherever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny story with that. The Neulasta comes in an insulin pump. That is technically the same pump that I wear all the time. But I couldn't wear it on the same side of my body, so I wear my insulin pump on my back. I've worn it that way for a very, very long time. I rotate it really well, but that I had to put on my stomach. Did you put those on your stomach?
No,
or your
I remember
arm?
you did. Mine was always on my arm.
Yeah, they never put it on my arm. I don't know why I don't know. There must have been a reason. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But you wore it for 24 hours, and then when the light went from green to red,
it would beep.
It would beep. You're right. Yeah, that was right. It would beep.
Because I would be so anxious. I'd be like, or no, it would beep when you first got it on, and then you would wait for that like rubber band to flick, what it felt like.
Yes.
And then after that, it was like smooth sailing. But then I always cringed when I would have to have Chris help me take it off. Just because I knew that little needle was sticking out, and I was
it's actually like a little cannula.
Okay.
It's basically the same idea as like a IV. So the IV, when you get an IV, you get the needle sticks in your skin to break the skin surface, and then it actually retracts. It's the same idea with this, and it leaves the little plastic cannula. It's like a little tubing that is underneath your skin at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, it is weird. And for me, it wasn't necessarily weird, but that's because I was used to it. Like I was like, okay.
But I was so grateful because I realized or had learned then that if we didn't have that, we were driving back the next day to get that shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. And there's still people like my dad's friend I talked to who would have to do that. Like, man. You know,
and that was to raise the white blood cell count. It was to help your body reproduce like new white blood cells because they're obviously depleting them with your cancer treatment. And
here we are in flu season getting treatment for chemo or cancer.
Yeah, actually, I got my flu shot the day that I got my first treatment.
Did you?
Yeah, because they said, have you had your flu shot? And I was like, nope. I've been too busy doing all this. But yeah, I got that. Yeah. But yeah, overall, I feel like chemo itself, every single one was a little different. My second one was actually pretty smooth sailing. I kind of knew what to expect for the most part about like the day after, and then you know, but I was a little anxious as far as like I didn't want to go through the vomiting again. I mean, that gave me such like mouth sores and like my throat hurt for days after.
And I feel like movies generalize, if an actor or actress is doing chemo, they're vomiting. And I was like, I probably threw up once.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's just so different because it's so generalized. But I didn't realize that you had gotten sick with yours. Okay.
Yeah, I had definitely gotten pretty sick. And to be honest, I want to make sure that that's very clear. I got sick not because, in my opinion, not because of the chemo. I got sick because of the way I was treated with medications after. So I think that that's what kind of stirred up some of the, like my body wasn't very settled because it's like, okay, you gave me this medication and then I had treatment and then you gave me this medication and now I'm like, it was like, everything was like all out of whack.
Well, and you're trying to like balance out everything and get back on track with your diabetes stuff.
Exactly.
While you're getting chemo drugs.
Exactly.
And it's just
it's like a
rough start. Yeah.
But the second one was fine. I didn't really have any issues. I mean, there's of course the occasional like nausea and then like vomiting, or not vomiting, but diarrhea. Like having those bouts of diarrhea, and honestly, there's just really nothing. Even Imodium isn't gonna fix it.
And the way that they tell you, don't look at the label, do it this way, and like I had it in our binder. I'm like, wow, you're sure we're not like overdosing on this? Because it's a lot, and they're like, no, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I feel like mine were pretty like predictable as to what to expect after. During was good because you got like a warm blanket. They would bring snacks, drinks. They were super kind.
They were the best.
But there were a couple times, maybe two, I think, that I went in for fluids. And that can really, really, really bring you down, and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're losing so much water, and then water, what's it called? Water adhesion? Water aversion? Regular water starts to taste really bad. Yes. So that's hard, because it's like hard to stomach.
It's weird.
Yes.
It's so weird.
Yeah, so that's hard. So I did go in for fluids, and that was just like a huge blessing, because that really just made you feel 100 times better shortly after.
Yeah, the only other time I had to go in for fluids was after the third round, which was actually after you had your first one.
Oh, yeah.
After that treatment, I think it was like 4 days after, number one, I couldn't eat anything. And then I had awful diarrhia. I couldn't hardly drink the water, like you said, the whole water aversion thing is just, it was just gross. I was trying to also, like, I know at the time, which obviously there's a lot of things that are different now as far as like hydration.
Oh my gosh.
Like with, you know, the liquid stuff or the powders that you put in. Yeah, like
I wish I would have had that.
Yeah. I didn't really have that. I mean, it was like Gatorade, and I felt like Gatorade was just so gross. Everything was just so gross about it. Like the thick, because it's like a little thicker than water. I really couldn't.
How was your appetite? Did you only like certain foods? I know I had to avoid spicy. I could not handle even like Chipotle, just regular Chipotle. It was way too much for me.
Yeah, I couldn't really.
But I wanted their rice. I just wanted rice sometimes, you know.
I don't know that I don't really remember much about like the specifics of my diet. I just know that I ate very bland. Like I didn't really add a lot of like sauces or like seasonings and stuff like that. It was very bland for the most part. I don't remember doing anything too crazy, especially with like spicy stuff. Like I didn't add anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think just your diet overall, I feel like I was just not motivated by food whatsoever. I didn't really have like that thought where I was like, oh, that sounds good. Like I never once had a thought like that. It was just like, okay, I'll eat that. Like, all right, I guess I'll do this.
Something.
If I remember right, I think I did a lot of like peanut butter toast or simple things, like maybe like some scrambled eggs. Nothing too wild.
Yeah, I agree.
It was just a very boring time, honestly. I do remember though, Thanksgiving was like awesome because my third treatment, like I said, I had a really rough time, and then Thanksgiving was like right after that. And I was like so excited that I was feeling good and I could eat Thanksgiving dinner and not feel sick. I was so happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the best day of eating for the whole year,
Right.
you're not going to get to enjoy.
Right. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't, thankfully, have any real side effects from, like, eating that type of stuff. But,
that's good. Yeah.
But, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
overall, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I don't think chemo overall was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you think ahead of time, you think it's going to be this awful thing and it's going to make you look like a skeleton. Like, that's kind of the perception that you get from, like, you said, movies and everything. But I think, honestly, the hardest part about it is that you feel very isolated. That, for me, was hard. Like, I look different, I feel different, I have to go through this, and then, it was a very isolating time.
Right.
And I didn't want to go anywhere. Like, did you go to the grocery store? Did you, like, do normal things during that period of time?
I tried to, because I wanted to keep, like, my stay-at-home mom duties kind of the same. I mean, I did have a lot of help, like, my mom would go do whatever. I could always ask Chris for whatever, but I wanted to try and keep the normalcy. So I would, but sometimes I would struggle, like, with, there was a time where, I'm trying to think, like, at what point, it might have been like after my chemo, but, while I was still getting treatment, if that makes sense, that I was like, oh, I have to go pick her up at preschool, but, like, there's, like, I'm gonna have to, like, leave early because I'm gonna have to, like, use the bathroom before I go, and, like, playing all around, like, these side effects that I had going on, so, like, that was tricky, but again, it's all temporary. But I just remember, maybe it was my 5th one, I want to say, but I was like, I'm so tired of going to this place and feeling this way, and I don't want to do this anymore, and, I was just tired of knowing what was to come, but it didn't happen until, like, later, I was like, I know I need this, and I know I need to do this, but, like, just feel like your life is on hold, and you're not able to do anything you want to do, and because you aren't well, and because you're getting chemo through, like, the fall and winter, not being able to go do things with your friends, and, like, feel like you're kind of missing out on things like that, like, definitely. That was hard, but overall, I'm grateful for the experience, because, obviously, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been healed, and given it was the best possible scenario I could have had, like, I got to share chemo with you. I had a great support system, an awesome medical team. So, but I just remember how hard it was and saying, like, I would never wish this on my worst enemy.
No.
I really wouldn't. And I don't know, like, if I had to do it again, I would absolutely do it. But man, I really hope I don't ever have to. So it was hard.
Yeah.
So, and there's, like, a lot of times where you hear people who are older and they're like, they were diagnosed, but they decided not to do treatment. Or, like, I fully respect that, because the toll it takes is,
it's hard. It's very hard.
It is, and even on us when we were in our 30s, so,
something that I don't know that I've ever really shared, but you said that you weren't looking forward to your 5th treatment, and I believe that that's about the time that I was done with treatment. So we weren't together at that point. There wasn't that to look forward to.
Yeah, that was the part.
I will say, my 3rd treatment, I was excited because I knew someone was going to be there. I hated the fact that you had to go through it. I don't ever want to, like, make it sound like I was just, yay, she's doing this with me. Like, it's not like that at all.
But to have togetherness and something that is so isolating is...
Yes, but I will say, it's kind of weird. I honestly... It's just odd, to be honest. I looked forward to it. And that's a weird thing to say, but it's the truth. I actually looked forward to going after you had started treatment, because I got to, like, spend time with you, and there was, like, so much laughter and goofiness through those days.
There was. It was not a sad room.
No, it was, like we were just, like, joking around about all sorts of things, like, talking about whatever, and it was, like, refreshing.
And I do believe that. And we've said, because we have lost touch, because we're not seeing each other every 3 weeks, And it was such a nice thing, because it was almost just like a day date. Where we would all just hang out.
Exactly.
I mean, it was like, and we never, like, prioritized that at that time anyway. So it was an unexpected good time.
It was.
Yeah.
And you know, to further that, like, so we would have treatment, and then for me, you know, there was the 3 weeks off in between.
Mm-hmm.
I would have the week off after from work. I always took that full week, and then I would go back to work for 2 weeks, and then I would start this over again. And it was just like a big hamster wheel. Like, I did the same thing every time.
Yeah.
And I think what I looked forward to was, number one, I got to spend time with you. And I think when you're in the process of treatment, you feel safe. Right? You feel like, okay, I'm in the process of it. I'm doing what they're telling me to do. I'm good. As long as I'm doing this, I'm good.
Right.
But, you know, that's obviously being a little naive, because you just didn't know at that time, like, what one day from the next could look like.
No, but I always woke up and was like starting to count down. Okay, I'm this far.
Yep.
Or I would wake up and on the days, even like I just told my daughter this the other day. I was like, it was yesterday. I said, why are you in a bad mood? I'm like, you woke up and you feel good. And I remember thinking during chemo, I would just want to wake up and feel good, not feel like sick or yucky. And it would be like on a small scale or a big scale. It would vary.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just to wake up and just to feel good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that like I don't have to deal with that.
Of course. Yeah. But I think too, like for myself, having that following week off was like a little unsettling. The silver lining in it is that I got to spend time with my kids, and my mom really pushed me to get out of the house. And, you know, like I asked you earlier if you went to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I only would go places in the middle of the day because I'm like, everybody's at work. I'm probably not going to run into somebody that I know.
Yeah.
So it's like, who cares if I walk around and I have no hair and whatever. That was like just my safety net. And then really the 2 weeks that I went to work, I mean, I'll go into more about the hair and all of that.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt the same way, because like once I made that first move to go back after having treatment and being sick and all of that, it felt like, okay, this is my safety net by doing what I'm used to doing. This is my routine. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is keeping me going.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting and just waiting. Okay, I hope the next treatment isn't bad. You know, like nothing like that.
You can't sit in your thoughts like
Exactly.
that either. That's hard.
Exactly.
And where you're still in our small town, you have much more likelihood of seeing people, whereas I was a little bit out from that. So I didn't always, but I wanted to make sure to get out because, like, for our kids' sake, you know, we're like, let's, you know, we would do the library and we would do story time and, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And it was hard, though, too, with colds and things like that.
It was,
like, you know.
I just felt like it wasn't as big of a deal to go out at that point in time. Now, obviously, we didn't do that every single day, but you know, just to be able to leave the house and not feel so isolated at home.
Yeah.
I will say though, making sure you know where you're going and what bathrooms are available, that was a big deal. And I do remember telling my mom a few times while we were out, I was like, I need to go home. Like, I do not feel like I can continue to walk through this store or do whatever, and I'm done.
Yeah.
And we would go home, and that was it. But I do think keeping yourself moving, like move your body and try to get out of the house, go for a walk, do whatever it is that's going to make you feel good, and just keep pushing forward. Because if you sit in your thoughts and that's all you're thinking about, I mean, you are bound to be a very depressed person and to not do your body justice. Because really keeping the spirit up is so important during that time.
I agree. And I think the one thing I focus on or try to is finding one positive every morning to kind of cling to. I mean, really, it should have just been like, you're alive and you're reading.
Yeah.
But I, you know, obviously that, and then I would just find something good, and I would also count down, and you know.
I do remember myself always saying thank you. Like I would just say thank you, like just thank you. Like when my kids would wake up in the mornings, and I'm just like, thank you. Like I get to do this.
Yeah.
Like I'm good. I will do this because they don't have to, and I'm good. Like whatever it takes for me to get through this, that's what I'm gonna do. But like, just thank you for letting me be here for another day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. But we'll talk more about hair. I feel like that's a big topic. That's something that a lot of women are affected by, and kind of dive a little bit more into when that happens, how that happens, what we did to combat that issue, and all the things.
Right. Yeah.
But overall, I feel like our chemo journeys were pretty pleasant. They weren't always, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
we made it through, and
We did. Best possible scenario given the circumstances.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank God for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Truly.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys joining us for this episode, and we hope that you join us again when we talk about hair loss, because
Yes.
it's a good one. Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Ribbon podcast. Our mission is to empower and support those affected by breast cancer. If you feel led to donate and support our mission, you may do so by clicking the link in our bio.
Don't forget to follow and share our content to help spread awareness and support. Remember, we journey together and we heal together.